Hello everyone, I'm Alan, also known as McLaren 2009, and today I am back playing Derail Valley. As per usual, I haven't streamed for a little while, so we gotta get back into the swing of things. And we're pretty much picking up where we left off last time. We're currently in the harbor. We have a unit train full of acetylene cars that we are taking to the harbor. Or not the harbor, to the machine factory. We have our marker here on the back. We have air. And we kind of just stopped everything like right here before we make the run up the mountain. So we have those, that, and we got all this stuff. All right, let's get on the engine and get rolling. Now, this month is interesting for me because in real life, as you already know, I work for a Class 1 railroad in the United States, and I am a conductor. So I'm the guy that is responsible for all of the cars. Not necessarily what's in them, but I'm responsible for the cars themselves as part of the train. But very recently, or actually at the beginning of this month, I started working on the process to become a remote control operator. Why did I come up here? The handbrake's right here. So basically, it turns out these are very real. Why is that on? It's like, it turns out this is a very real type of equipment. I'm learning how to use something. It doesn't exactly look like this in real life, but I'm learning to use a real device that allows you to remote control a locomotive, or even a series of locomotives, like would be the case here. And I was actually very surprised to find out that basically every part of this, well, except for this part's not really a thing. But all of this is very much something we can do from a remote control. In fact, we can do even more than what's on here. There. Turns out we can do way more than what's even on that box. We can activate the bell, we can activate the lights, we can pair it with an engine. We can do all kinds of fun stuff. Alright, let's apply that, release that. Okay. So, let's close this. Let's close this. And now we are in the engine and ready to roll. Sort of. Set that right there. Alright, turn that off. I like how the high beams just angle the lights. Alright, now there's a crossing right there. And there's like houses there, so that's absolutely not a private crossing. The more you know. Alright. Now, we're about to start going uphill. So, in order to do that, we're going to need some throttle. Pro tip, do not quickly speed up or slow down. It ends terribly. Basically, in between all of the cars, and even the engines and the slug, there's a coupling system. In Derail Valley, it's a chain and buffer. Here in the US, we have AAR coupler knuckles, which they basically come in 3 forms at the moment. But either way, there's a coupling system between every car, between every engine. And the cars have weight. There is slack in between the cars. And basically, as we're moving down the rails, all of the weight of all of the cars are acting on the train as a whole. And they make the train do different things. Like the fact that we're currently going uphill, all of our power is up here, and all of our weight is back there. So basically, all of the weight is being pulled back down the hill, while the engines are trying to go up the hill. We have enough engines that we're easily making this climb, and we're not even in full throttle. So, we're doing good. But it starts getting a little bit weird once we get to about the crest of the hill, which should be right around this turn on the other side of this Y. Now, I think this is going into a tunnel. Alright. Hit the horn, hit the bell, and we're going into the tunnel. Alright, we're out of the tunnel. Turn off the bell. Alright, now, the thing is, pretty much like the lowest speed going through here is 40. So personally, I try to go about 35. But the thing about a speed limit with a train is you can only go as fast as the lowest speed part of your train is in an area 4. So even though we just passed the sign for 70, if any part of the crane is still in an area that's say 40, we can only go 40 until the entire crane is into the 70. And the reason for that is being, even though we are physically in this area, back there is a sharper turn. If we go this speed in the area where the crane can only go a lower speed, it's going to derail, potentially. Like right here, this is a 40. But it's also going uphill and fairly, well, not too steep. But that's the part that makes it fun. What's considered steep for a truck, or what's considered steep for a crane, doesn't seem very steep for like a car or a truck. But we're on like a completely different order of magnitude of weight. It's kind of crazy, honestly. Alright, let's notch down a little bit. Let's notch down again. And the thing is, you have to make like gradual movements with the engine. Like, you can't just quickly speed up or quickly slow down, because that's how bad things happen. Bad things like derailments. And we came through there, so we're coming up through here. We're not in idle because we're going to lose all of our speed and start rolling back down the mountain. But we're still accelerating. Oh. All right. So now we should be up around here. Maybe. Alright, we're passing by water. There's that. Alright, so yeah, we're right about there. And as you can see, we're going into another 40. I think there's another tunnel around the corner. Oh, no, there's not. Oh, well, that's embarrassing. Pro tip, this is why you know the territory that you work in. Now that's a tunnel. Unfortunately, we kind of have to speed up for this process because this last tunnel is pretty steep. And as you can see, we are losing speed. It's kind of funny that I know these things because with this new class that I started where I'm learning how to be a remote operator, I'm getting a crash course in how an engine works without actually being an engineer. All I've got to be able to do is make the engine move in a yard. This is making an engine move over the road. So this is outside of the scope of my abilities. But I still know a little bit about the forces that act on the cars, how a train moves, how a train works. And there's like a lot of stuff that you have to know in order to do. Well, there's a lot of stuff you have to know to do my job as a conductor. Now there's even more stuff that I have to learn how to do the job of a remote operator, which could be a conductor, could be an engineer. All right, now right around here is where we start going downhill. Now, I wasn't exactly counting, so I don't know if I've gone 10 seconds. Something about rapidly changing between throttle and dynamic brake is really bad for traction motors. I don't know exactly why, but it's not a good thing. Don't do it. And as you can see, just the first notch dynamic is bringing our speed down. Now, bear in mind, the DH4, the Slug, and the other DE6 all have some kind of a dynamic brake. So that's 4 engines worth of dynamic brakes. Now, the thing that we're going to have to deal with is, you'll remember from the last stream, we came down from the steel mill, but we had to come straight out of the yard. So this Y right here is lined to go into the steel mill. So basically, that switch is going to be wrong. So we're going to have to deal with that when we get there. Now, the hope is I can get down this grade without slowing down to the point that I need to apply the throttle, because I want to keep being able to use my dynamic brake. Otherwise, we can potentially have a bad time, which we don't want to have a bad time. Sometimes in this game you want to cause chaos and discontent, but not a bad time. Let's see. They kind of fixed it. They made the knife switch for all the electrical systems, and they actually have a separate breaker for the traction motors, which is the way that it works, more or less. There are a lot more breakers, but you get the idea. Like, we still don't have the ability to cut out engines or cut out the automatic brake. We can't cut out the independent. We don't have to worry about configuring the headlights for if they're controlled by another engine. None of that. It's a lot more simplified. Alright, still going 70, or we can go 70, we're still going 40. So basically, right now, we're just idling. Not a care in the world. And we're doing good on fuel, good on oil. Realistically, neither of those gauges are right there. The oil gauge would actually be in the engine compartment. The fuel gauge, there could be one up there, it could be on the back wall. And there could be an analog or a digital gauge on the sides by the fuel port itself. Alright, let's set... Alright, let's set the dynamic. Let's go out on the nose. This is totally not safe. Because, as you can tell, nobody is currently in control of this engine. So this can potentially get disastrous. Luckily, the speed limit going through this area is pretty high. And even setting it on like a very minimal dynamic application, it's not going to get too crazy. Alright, so that's going out towards the sawmill? Or Forest Central, or Forest South. It's either Forest South or the sawmill. Either way, that's going out that way. So around the corner is going to be where the we're only going 30. All right, we're doing fine. Okay. So basically around this corner up here, well, it'll be a little bit farther down, maybe like a mile or so, will be the Y that goes towards Oil Well Central, Forest Central, and City Southwest. All right, let me go... All right, let's notch the dynamic up a little bit more. A bit more than that. The reason that we're doing this is because that first corner where you go into quite literally the steepest grade in the game, it's only 50. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Alright, now see, here's the sign for the Y. Alright, going left. And you see right here, we can only go 50 to the left. And We are pretty freaking close to 50. Alright, we're just gonna go full dynamic. Okay, good. And even going full dynamic, we're still not completely slowing down. But the good news is all right. That might come back to bite me, but this area is kind of flat until you get to the other side of City Southwest. Now, in theory, the same rule applies for going from dynamic back to throttle. It's the same 10-second waiting period. Now, modern engines that are like the newly built ones, they have internal components that basically prevent them from being damaged by rapidly switching between throttle and dynamic. But older engines like this one do not have that feature. So this would be one of those engines that it's the reason you're not allowed to do that. But brand new engines have no such limitation. And now we're passing by standing equipment on both sides, so we need the bell. And in theory, we would want to blow for this crossing, but since there are cars blocking it, they couldn't use that crossing if they wanted to. So it's like a whole thing. I'm going to treat that like a private crossing. Alright. Alright, and that's 60. Alright, cool. Let's just get back up to 40 and we'll be good. Alright, we can go 50 through the station. And standing equipment once again, so let's turn that on. and we're carrying like a literal train of hazmat. So realistically, we want to be going less than the speed limit anyway. This train would almost by definition be a key train. So we'd be going slow anyway. Or slower. Granted, it's a little bit different because Derail Valley is in kilometers per hour, whereas what I work with is miles per hour. But it's not too crazy of a conversion. I'm not going to do it in my head, and I'm not going to waste time calculating it. I'm just going to roll with it how it works in the game. But say like the normal track speed would be like 60 miles an hour for freight. For a key train, it would be 50. So call it maybe 90 kilometers an hour versus, I don't know, 75, 70. Seems pretty reasonable. And oddly enough, the thing that you hear when the dynamic brake comes on, you hear the motors loading, but you also hear the fans up on the roof that are keeping the resistor grid and heat sink that's taking the energy that's now being generated by the traction motors and converting it into heat and dissipating it into the atmosphere. How these things work is actually extremely fascinating. It's interesting to note that on a real control stand, these levers are reversed. The dynamic brake's up here, the throttle's over here. But they actually are oriented like this. Like the throttle, the idle position would be like forward like this. So that the idea is in the event of an emergency, you would like push it away from you and slam it closed. And the dynamic is still oriented like this, but the handle's facing backwards so that when you apply the dynamic, you push it forward to fully apply the brake. There's a lot of like thought that went into it that I don't fully understand, but it's kind of interesting how it works like that. All right, let's turn. Is that on the door as well? No, it's not. Oh, cool. They all work. But on a real engine, there would also be a lever on each door that would allow you to use the windshield wipers on those two. And there's actually two knobs, one for the front, one for the back. And there's one on the engineer's side and one on the conductor side. But Derail Valley doesn't have a conductor, so the conductor just doesn't exist. We got a refrigerator and an electrical compartment with a bathroom, but there's no conductor. The conductor isn't real. It's only a figment of your imagination. There are no whistle boards in Derail Valley, so it gets a little bit interesting. But I think there's another one on that side, too. All right, now, as you can remember, that speed limit sign back there said it was 30 around this turn. So basically, we need to go 30 until the last car clears that turn. In theory, there would be like a distance counter in the cab so that as soon as you run a train length, you can go the higher speed limit. There's also the added bonus of we are now going uphill. So we're going to have a little bit of a problem where we can only go 30 through the station, but we need to be accelerating up this hill. Luckily, we're not that long, but it's still pretty good size. And the fact that we have 3.5 engines, we've got some pretty good tractive effort. We got 2 DE6s and DH4 and a slug. So basically, the back DE6 is like 1.5 engines. Basically, an engine generates more electricity than it can possibly use. There we go. So the slug allows it to demonstrate, or it allows it to distribute the electricity to more axles. Hello, welcome to the stream. Yeah, I'm a little late noticing. Sorry. I've just been ranting about traction motors or something, rather. Basically, I rant about all kinds of stuff. Judging train things in games. Yeah. I actually just took my test for my remote license. So I've started learning how to actually use the remote control in the yard. And now we're starting the on-the-job training next week. All right, we gotta speed up a little bit more. It's interesting because, like, all of the stuff that this thing can do, it turns out the real ones can do most of them. In fact, there's a couple of things the real box can do that this can't. Like, we've got the throttle, the reverser, the independent brake, the train brake, sand, horn, but the horn switch can also apply the bell. It can also start the bell. There's a button to make the headlights bright or dim. The pairing system is pretty much the same. with the box that I've got, you got to like hold down the alerter, turn it on, point it at the sensor on the wall, put it into a certain mode, and then that turns it on and pairs it. Stuff like that. And then it also has the alerter, so it knows if you pass out. It has a tilt sensor, so if you fall off the engine, it puts the train into emergency. And then like you have your control stand here where you have like the technically 10 positions of the throttle lever. Well, the remote in the game has those same 10 positions on the throttle, whereas the real box, it has like a speed selector. Like it says, I want to go 1 mile an hour, I want to go 4, I just want to coast. And then it just automatically fluctuates the throttle and independent brake to maintain that speed, instead of being like, okay, I'm just going to go straight to notch 1 or notch 2, notch 3, notch 4. None of that. It's like, I want to go 4 miles an hour. I tell the engine, go 4 miles an hour. And that's all I got to do. Oh. We got a problem. What I did was I pulled into the yard, and I didn't realize that I pulled into the yard. All right, let's release the release the train brake. Let's grab my remote. Okay. Independence fully applied. All right. Like, there are a lot of safety features on the real remote control that are not in Derail Valley. Like, as I said, the real box has a tilt sensor. So if I like move it around, basically I just would have dumped the train right there. All right. This should be the back. C3. All right, well, the good news is we're already on that side. Oh, nice. All right, 2 and 3. All right, let's grab Pocket Watch. You go right there. Okay. Of course, pouring down rain. Of course, we're going to get wheel slip. It turns out this thing, like setting the throttle or applying the independent brake, and setting or turning on the throttle and then releasing the independent brake, you only need to do that on a hill. Or if for some reason you attempt to start out and you can't. And then as I'm starting to realize, because it was snowing all of the days that we were working in the yard, being a remote control operator is like quite literally the worst of both worlds. What I mean by that is the conductor is out here where I am right now, pouring down rain, fighting with cars. The engineer is up in the locomotive where it's warm and dry. A remote operator has the same responsibility that the engineer has, like making sure we don't run through this switch, and this switch. It's like the remote operator has the same responsibility that the engineer has, because I'm responsible for the engine that I almost got murdered by. While still doing my job as a conductor. So I get to be outside in the freezing rain while still keeping track of the engine on top of keeping track of all of the cars. But the good news is, this means I'm one step closer to being prepared to go to engine school to become an engineer, because I can already start up and test locomotives. And I know a little bit about train handling in the yard. All right, let's release that. And let's just slam the entire train into the back of the engine, because that'll be fine. Okay. Now we grab this. Got 314. 733. 757. 836. Funny thing about this part is they are set up like this. Like you have your car initials, basically who owns the car, and then usually there will be a between 4 and 6 digit number. But for simplicity's sake, we'll look at just the last 3 digits. And then if there's like a discrepancy where something doesn't match like what it's supposed to be on our wheel report or cut sheet, then we'll look at the initials and all 6 digits. But if we're just running down the list and like everything matches up exactly like it's supposed to, we just look at the last 3 digits and it's easy. Four, 3, 2. 6, 8, 6. I thought that was a 0. 808. We'll start applying brakes here. 271. And 285. Nope. Alright, now we close this angle cock. Alright. Okay. $61,000. Alright, we are on a roll. Okay. Now, we've already closed the angle cock, so let's grab this right here. Actually, it's C4. Okay, so basically, we just have to break away, and it's literally right here where we made the cut. So, let's go over here, and we gotta go past this switch right here. And as you can see, train dumped. But we only got to get 3 cars past the switch, so we should already be braking. But that's also part of how you can break more things in the yard instead of over the road. Because here in like a yard setting like this, like in a setting like this, where we're starting and stopping, there's potential for more stuff to go horribly wrong. Whereas going over the road, you just make little adjustments to get your speed where it needs to go. It's like you just make little adjustments to correct your speed. Whereas in the yard, you're going from moving to a complete stop, going from a complete stop to moving, and you have to move like the entire train. But you have a problem if you have to accelerate past, say, notch 4. You're doing something wrong. And one thing that we're doing wrong right now is, even though this cut of cars is going to fit, we need to make absolutely certain that we're not going to run through that switch at the other end. So we got to go right here where the sign is, and we've got to stop it right there. Like, going from a high speed to a complete stop, that's what would cause these to rip. Like, the fact that all of these cars are loaded, if the back of the train wants to stop, and the front of the train wants to keep going, the weight is going to keep going. And that's how you rip a knuckle. Or, as I'm sure my European counterparts can point out, these can rip too. Basically, the way that slack works, it's exactly the same. It's just for our knuckles here in the US, the springs are inside of the draft gears, inside of what's called the draft sill. This little pocket right here on the end frame of the car. There's a spring mechanism in here that holds the knuckle in place. Here, the hook is kind of like on a pin that allows it to rotate side to side as needed to go down the tracks, but the spring mechanism keeping the cars from slamming into each other is in these buffers here and here. So basically, it's the exact same concept manifested in a different way. So all of the things like draft and buff forces acting on the couplers, it's all exactly the same. What a loaded car does going down the rails in Europe is exactly the same as what a loaded car does here in the US. The only thing that changes is the numbers on the gauge and how the system physically looks. The rest of it is exactly the same. So, go right here, go right here, go right there. So close, yet so far. Alright, but we don't have to worry about all that because we have another objective. We have one more thing that was not on the itinerary for today. We gotta find the passenger terminal, and we gotta go to the store. We gotta go shopping. Alright, where are you? Is it not here? Oh boy. Okay, so it appears it's not here. So then where is it? Alright. No, not that. I should actually be somewhere that I can physically see the engines. Otherwise, this is just asking for an accident. Oddly enough, before I actually started the process to become a remote control operator, actually, before I even knew that you could be a remote control operator, I genuinely had no idea that was something you could be. Because of Derail Valley, I accidentally learned pretty much all of the ways that a remote control can get you in trouble. Okay. Alright. Let's... I know they won't despawn for like an hour or so. It's like they won't despawn for about an hour. So I'm going to tie these down. And I'm going to teleport to a couple other stations. Okay. I'm going to go to a couple more stations. To see if I can find the key for the garage I need. Okay. Alright. I need the remote control. I need the key to get into the locker or into the garage. Really hope I didn't run through that switch. Oh no, I chased it all the way up there, and that would mean that we had headroom all the way out to here, and we didn't get to this switch, so we didn't run through it. So we had headroom all the way out, but we did cross a crossing, so we messed that up. Such is life. Okay, so we're going to start by going to City Southwest. Alright, we go over here by the passenger station. I'm not sure why it's set up like this, but the store is always near the passenger station. I think. Crane is freaking flying. Oh, there's an entire passenger yard over here. That's actually pretty cool. I am sure this one has a shop, right? Oh, it was not at the passenger station. Okay. Okay, it's not Reginald's garage. Alright, let's check goods factory. I just made like 100 grand, so I'm not too upset fast traveling. I will be slightly upset if I can't find it. Okay, not here. The only other place it could be is the food factory, but that would be freaking stupid. Right? Moo. Okay. Okay. Okay, there it is. Right by the passenger station. Old Bob's garage key. That is not a trash can. That is a stool. That is a chair. Okay, so we gotta go to the office. Right here. There we go. Oh god, they're back. Alright. Okay, now, in theory, they're still there. Matter of fact... Alright, I think it's out here. Yep. It should be this spur track right here. Sweet. How do you get in it, though? Okay. we have a battery? Yeah, it's right there. It doesn't have it independent, does it? What is the red one? Okay. Charging socket on both sides. The thing I'm curious about oh my god, you can control this thing with the remote. Yes, I literally just unlocked it now. Okay. Okay. Alright. So, we can grab our remote control. There. It is a remote controlled engine. Haven't played for a while, waiting for an update. Saw something in Forza Horizon 3? Aren't they on like 5 now? Why are they still updating 3? You saw me? I don't even have that game. I've got 4, but I haven't had it installed for like... It's not even on my new computer. Yeah, that is a little bit unusual. Okay. Nope. Okay. All right, now we do have to move all of these over. Huh? I was about to say, what are the odds? All right. We have to get all of our engines over to the roundhouse to get them refueled. But while we're on the subject, we can look for something fun to haul out of here. Yeah, but there's nothing really, like, exciting coming out of here. They're going to the goods factory. They're going to the food factory. I mean, this is a good one. Like, if we load up these and take them to Iron Mine West, which is literally just up around the corner. Yeah, it's Iron Mine West. So we can do that. We can unload the stuff we just brought in. All right, let's turn that off for now. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up one of the engines, but I'm going to knock off the brakes on all. Or actually, we're not going to do it that way. That way's stupid. Okay. Sure, this is where we are now. We're going to do this properly. We're going to start up the engine, and then we're going to move it into the shop. Anything cool going back to the harbor? Okay, this is military 2, and this is going to the harbor. And this is unload. Okay, so that's what we're going to do instead. We're going to work the military base. All right. So, as I mentioned in the beginning of the stream, in real life, I am a freight conductor. But at the beginning of this month, I started a class where I am learning how to be a remote control operator. So, basically, I just took my test the other day for my written test for my remote operator's license. So now, even though I am still just a conductor, I know how to start up and inspect engines, and I also know how to use a real system that closely resembles this right here. So, let's get that started. All right, now one thing that's majorly different between this and a real engine this is where the electrical compartment is. The engine compartment is back here. It would be this set of doors. And the priming and starting switch would be aft. But most of the people that play this game already know that. So, you don't have to this you don't have to prime. And then this lay shaft, it actually does that. All right. So, okay. Okay. Now, we only need one of these engines running because all we're going to do is take them over to the shop. So, we already have our remote paired to the DH4 over there. So, we're just going to throttle up. And we're going to go over here to this switch right here. Oh, actually, we have a problem. You see, I distinctly forgot to do something. We missed a very important step in this process. Now, the real question is, do you know what I missed before I go over and point it out? If you guessed there's a handbrake on all four of these engines, you would have been correct. Alright, let me back up a little bit. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. Ideally, what you would do is you would set up the DH4, which is my remote controlled locomotive in this case. I would have turned that one on and left everything else off. But we didn't do it that way. And I think there's a timer between times when the Streamlabs command can be used. So since you used it right after I did, it hadn't timed out yet. It prevents me from, or it prevents people from like spamming the commands. They're either like 30 or 60 seconds between being able to use them. Alright, I need remote control. Not remote. I need lantern. Haven't fixed that yet, but it's whatever. Alright. I think my real lantern, which has an LED light, is a lot brighter. Nope. Come on. Sure, why not? Let's just stand on the frickin' nose. Stand on the cab. It'll be fine. Funny thing. Up there is the headlight. These down here are the ditch lights. Those blink when you go over a road crossing in real life. Okay. All right. Alright, that is the loop to run around to the military base. We're going to have to go there in a little while. So yeah, it turns out that this thing isn't just in Derail Valley. It turns out this is very much a real thing. We can actually remotely control engines just like these. However, not every engine can be remote controlled. A remote controlled engine, a remote controlled locomotive, has to have the remote control system basically built into it. It's hardwired into the engine itself. Except the thing is that when a locomotive is being remote controlled, in this case, I'm using the DH4. Any remote controlled engine has little amber blinking lights on the top, usually above the cab, that when those lights are blinking, that means there is essentially no one in the cab of that engine. It is being controlled remotely by someone like me on the ground with one of these. The real ones look a little bit different, but they have almost the same functionality. The thing is, we can't couple and uncouple, obviously. But that's like a convenience thing just for Derail Valley. But the throttle, independent, automatic brake, the horn, the bell, the sander, the alerter, the reverser, all of those things can be controlled remotely from a box that's actually a lot smaller than this. Why is there a water tower here? You know what? I'm not going to question it. I know why there's a water tower here. It's because water is specifically the thing that's going to kill you on a steam engine. If you run out of coal, you can't keep the fire hot, and the problem's going to work itself out. It's just going to shut off and die. If you don't have water, you can't do anything to prevent the boiler from basically exploding. Crown sheet failure, all kinds of fun stuff. So if you don't want your engine to be very sad and slightly upset, then keep it watered. So there's a coal tower, and then right next to it's water. Well, there's another water tower right back there. All right, but we need this now, and we need this back. Because we already know the lead switch is against us. And then we need the shop switch, which is probably also against us. Yeah, shop switch is already against us. All right, at least that way we can make sure we have enough room, we have enough headroom to get past this switch right here. We might not even have to worry about that switch, but we've got it lined just in case. Right now, I'm actually sitting in a desk chair. It allows me to play this for like hours on end with no problems. Okay, we got to be careful with the brakes around here. Now, the good news is, because Derail Valley doesn't have a cutout system, like all of the brakes on running engines, they're all active. So basically, because these are all MU'd together, they all have a shared brake system. Okay, now let's go not slam into the roundhouse. It was kind of funny that before I even found out that a remote control operator was something you can actually be before I even knew any of that. Because of Derail Valley, it's like because of Derail Valley, I learned all of the ways a remote control box can get you in trouble. If you put the train in gear and use the reverse lever next to the start switch, will that train move? Huh? Oh, yeah. Okay, I know what you're saying. You're talking about in the engine compartment up here. And this is actually the one that I started, right? Yeah. Okay, yeah. That's the one I actually started. So you're saying that if you press the lay lever, will it throttle up? Yes, it will. Realistically, what that does is it sends fuel into the engine. It used to move it. I think prior to the simulator update, it used to move it, but now after the simulator update, it spools up the engine, but what actually moves the locomotive is the traction motors. So there's a little like engine computer inside of it that is separate from like the fuel injector, which is what that lay shaft is connected to. So basically, unless there's a throttle command from that computer telling it to send current to the traction motors, it won't move. All that's doing is putting fuel into the actual engine itself, or the actual like diesel engine itself. But the diesel engine doesn't move the locomotive. The diesel engine either turns an alternator or a generator, and it generates electricity depending on the specific type of engine that it is. It's either a generator or a very high voltage alternator, depending on the exact model of engine. No. In fact, the diesel is not in any way connected to what moves the wheels. Down here, let's see. You can't really see it here, but on these axles, you have your brakes, and then that big, like, gray box right there, that would be the traction motor, or the traction motor would be, like, in the center on top of that axle. And the traction motor is what actually turns the wheels. They use the diesel engine to generate electricity, and then you use electricity to turn the traction motors. So, diesel, electric. And then there's a high voltage system, which actually sends power or sends current to the traction motors. And then there's a low voltage system that sends electricity to the protective systems, the circuit breakers, the lights, sensors, everything else. Yes, they are very strong. You figure an engine like this probably has between 3,000 and 4,000 horsepower. Actually, let's find out. Huh? What is that? Oh, that's the hand cart. Okay, and that's a car. Or that. Oh, that's the caboose. Sweet. So yeah, this is your DE6. $3,000 flat ground, flat dry ground. Doesn't say horsepower. Six-X DC traction motors, V12 diesel engine, rheostat dynamic brake. Sweet. Tender. Oh, MU and remote. MU and remote. Okay. Oh, it has all kinds of cool stuff in there. Alright, so yeah. Diesel engine does not move the traction motors. It just creates the electricity that allows the traction motors to load. But even that, in and of itself, is not enough. Inside of the engine, on the control stand, there would be a set of switches over here on the right-hand side. Basically, there will be a engine run, generator field, and control and fuel switch right here on the control stand. Engine run allows the computer of this engine to run that diesel engine. Control and fuel allows this engine's computer to control the fuel injection system. And then the generator field is basically, think like a circuit breaker that allows the traction motors to function. So basically, you open up this cabinet right here and you have that traction motor breaker. If the generator field was open, this would be closed like that. Or this would be open like that. And that's what that alarm is. Basically, if generator field switch is down, traction motors won't do a damn thing. No current will go to them. Alright, we gotta go over here. It's all a process. Okay, this should be the fuel back here. Perfect. Okay. go up here. We go up here. We go here. And we go here. Now, the thing is, to actually leave engines unattended, you have to have full service, full service, full independent. It's like full automatic, full independent, reverser, centered, and removed. Like, it's not shown here, but there would be like a little slot right here that when the reverser is in the centered position like this, you take out the lever and take it with you. Well, that's actually one of the maintenance things you do in this game. Like, if your traction motors explode in this, it'll pop that breaker. Which, as you probably know, circuit breakers are protective measures to keep the electrical systems from failing. So, realistically, what you would do is, now that we've cut off the fuel, we would go into the cabinet, hit all the breakers, and the knife switch. And only now is the engine, safe. It's secured, it's shut down, all of the electrical systems are off. We're done. We're good to go. Alright. Now it's up in the air. Is this gonna work like it's supposed to? Okay, didn't touch it. Sweet. Okay, we have burned through almost a third of the diesel. Is this a train game in VR? Yes, it is. And quite frankly, I like this one better. When did I apply sand? You know what? I'm not even going to question it. I like this game better than, like, Train Sim World. By, like, a lot. Okay. I don't remember using the sand. And this is the slug. It's actually really cool that they made the slug not invulnerable anymore. They made it so that you can damage the slug now. It's essentially just a block of concrete. Like, there are traction motors. That's what makes it a slug, but it gets all of its electricity from a mother engine. Okay, we got that. Take this off. Put that over there. Grab this. And we will run it over. Luckily, the slug, I actually do know where you unlock it. The slug, you get the key for it at the harbor. And there's a spur track. What the fuck? How did I end up in here? No, go over there. There's a spur track east of the harbor, and that's where you find it. Have I finished the game? Technically twice. On this particular save, I have one more license to get, and I'm a little shy of getting that one. In fact, let's find out how far away am I. Nope. Okay. Now we go down to no, not that one, not that one. Okay, this is just solidifying that in a couple of weeks when I increase my random stupid purchases button or my bank account that I'm saving up to buy stupid shit. The first thing I'm going to do is get a new VR setup because no amount of spraying contact cleaner on my controllers is preventing the stick drift. It's just going to happen now. The only one I don't have yet is, it should be Mil 3. Yeah, Military 3. And I literally need $70,000. That works. So yeah, I want to upgrade. Right now I have an Oculus Rift S, and they don't even make that anymore. You have to get like the Quest 2 or 3, and I like the idea of the Quest, like the fact that you can have a VR system that doesn't have to be plugged into your computer. And that's awesome, but I kind of like it being connected to the computer because I don't have to worry about battery life, if that makes sense. So the thing that I want to upgrade to is I want to get a Valve Index because I want the finger tracking. That just seems like such a cool but completely unnecessary thing. I mean, to be fair, I think since I started playing with VR, I'm pretty sure I've punched my desk a couple of times. Hell, I did it when I first got my Rift. I played this game called Contagion VR, and the first thing I did at like 2 o'clock in the morning was I was playing Contagion VR, and I got into like a knife fight with a zombie, and then I grabbed like a meat cleaver and then like went to hit the zombie and then punched the top of my desk with my controller. Specifically with my left controller, which is the one that I have the problems with. And that was like 3 years ago now. And like I said, they don't even make the Rift S anymore. You have to get the Quest. So I'm going to switch to the Index. That one seems pretty cool. And the best part is I pretty much already have the money for it. I could literally like order it next week, but I'm going to wait a second or two. That's the fun thing about working for the railroad. You have lots of money, but you have no time to use it. And right now, this is probably the best time for me to be able to use it. The reason being, while I'm in this class learning how to be a remote operator, so learning how to... Where's my remote? Oh boy. Okay. Oh boy. All right, let's add that to the list. Where the hell is my remote control? And why is it not on me? That's a bit of a problem. I'm pretty sure if I lost the remote in real life, I would literally get fired before my shift even ends. It's probably in Lost and Found. Let's start there first. Yep, there it is. Marvelous. And the button's right there. Yeah. This game's kind of weird sometimes. So yeah, we've been doing this for a little over 2 hours now, and I don't stream very often, so I don't currently have like the stamina for it, if that makes sense. But I am going to, even though this is not what you do in real life, I'm going to leave the engines with the breakers on, so that all I gotta do is just fire them up and go. For the harbor being the biggest train yard, why does it have the smallest office? You know what? I don't really know. It is the only one that's not like 2 stories. Huh. That is a good question. And no, I don't think I was robbed. I'm pretty sure I just accidentally dropped it. I somehow touched the little node right here and dropped the remote and it fell on the ground somewhere, and I just didn't notice until I started talking about learning how to be a remote operator and the fact that I'm in class right now, so I have the best possible time for me to order a new VR system. And I can actually be home when it gets here. And then I look down, where's my remote? But that's one of those things, like I mentioned earlier in the stream, about how the real remote control has safety and protective features that the one in the game doesn't have. Like, in real life, I wear a vest. And my remote control is clipped to my vest, and it's physically attached to my body at all times. And it has to be there for as long as I'm working on duty as a remote operator. The vest is clipped to me and on. And if I ever fall over or collapse or lean too far one way, forward, backward, side to side, if I move more than 45 degrees in any direction, it puts the train into emergency, because that means that the operator has fallen from the car or the engine, and we need to do an emergency stop of the train to make sure they don't get run over. Derail Valley, as you probably know, has none of those safety features. All of the things that make our job easier and safer on the real railroad, Derail Valley has none of them. If you risk dying in this game, that's half the fun. It's literally in the name. They want you to learn everything in this game the hardest and worst way possible. Because for some bizarre reason, we're a nigh immortal demigod that has an obsession with running trains. Probably a borderline unhealthy obsession with running trains, but that's another issue entirely. Well, you can't die in the game, but you can put yourself into some questionable positions where you absolutely would die in real life. Think back to the tutorial in the beginning of the game, right? It literally tells you, all right, climb up into the engine. Turn it on, make it go forward, make it go backwards. This applies the brake on just the engine. This applies the brake for all of the cars. This is how you turn a switch. This is how you couple to a car. This is how you tie the air hose. There's the station. Good luck. How do the speed limits work? Find out. Want to know what happens when you do 60 in a 35? Find out. Throw the train off the side of a cliff. Blow up oil well central. Throw the train into a ravine. Slam a DE2 into the engine house at the goods factory. Ask me how I know. You do all of those things the hard way. Right when the simulator update dropped, I started with a brand new save, this current save that I'm in right now. Got the license for MU manual service. I had a consist of freaking 3 DE2s attempting to come up here to the machine factory, blew every traction motor on every engine, had to repair using the insurance from City Southwest because I stalled coming up the mountain. Like, they tell you in the beginning that since the simulator update started, they tell you that you move using traction motors on the diesel electrics. If you overload the traction motors by going from like a dead stop to full throttle, you're potentially going to blow up your traction motors. Now, a real engine has an overcurrent auto shutoff, so that if you go from like idle to notch 8, it basically just shuts off. Like, it will not let you blow up the engine intentionally. Derail Valley has no such protections. You want to go all the way to 100? Knock yourself out. You're going to get a pretty light show. I immediately got into the sandbox and blew up the DE2. I did not go into sandbox, and I accidentally blew up the DE2. It was great. Got to see what it looks like when a traction motor explodes. Thankfully, I haven't seen that in real life. I have, however, seen what it looks like when a traction motor, like, overloads. And basically, the torque of the engine just starts, like, causes it to just bounce up and down on the chassis uncontrollably. That was a fun day. They're like, oh yeah, it's definitely going into the shop. The question is, are we going to tow it there, or is it going on its own power? I think they ended up towing it. I don't think it could move on its own power. Not safely, anyway. I've seen when they fail to load, when they overload. I've seen when they shut off completely. What the? No, up here. Why is this? It's not. The lights are just really bright. Oh, no. What it is there's no, like, light collision on, like, the cars and engines. So that street light is shining through the cab of the DH4. The funny thing is, all the stuff that I've seen, I haven't even hit my year mark with the railroad yet. I'm already seeing bizarre stuff, and I haven't even been here a whole year yet. It's interesting how much I learned about this job before I even started the job. And oddly enough, the stupid shit that I know, I can blame Derail Valley. This might not be what the equipment that I really work with looks like. Like, I'm a conductor in the US. We have AAR coupler knuckles. These are the European chain and buffer system. So this is not what I work with. But how you actually play Derail Valley, this is the closest you're going to get to what my real job looks like every single day. This is pretty much what I do. And I'm a licensed conductor I'm a couple weeks away from potentially being a licensed remote operator. I'm like the better part of a decade away from being an engineer, at least. It's kind of up in the air on that one. If a bunch of people retire and we like desperately need engineers, they might send more people to school for it. It would be fun if they made a game with this amount of realism into like a truck or a plane simulator. Uh, yeah, actually, there's supposed to be a truck simulator. I want to say it's like the Australian one that you can actually like walk around the truck, like climb in and out of the cab and actually like couple the hoses between the trailers, set up like converter dollies for doubles and triples. So that might be the closest you can get for trucks. I like American Truck Simulator and Euro Truck Simulator, which I was also a truck driver before I worked for the railroad. Yeah, it would be awesome if that was in VR. That would be really cool. I would be all over that. But the thing about like American Truck Sim, for example, I started playing that heavily just before I got into the school to get my commercial driver's license. And I was alternating between that and BeamNG Drive because before that, I didn't know how to drive a stick shift. So I learned how to drive stick by putting BeamNG Drive on like the hardest transmission settings and using my wheel and shifting lever. And then I transferred that over to American Truck Sim, and I upgraded to being able to drive a manual truck with an 18-speed transmission. Well, when I actually started my class and started driving on the road, I found out that the game does not properly simulate how the transmission works. Like, you shift at the wrong RPM, you don't have to double clutch, there's no clutch brake. It's basically you're driving a car with an 18-speed transmission. It doesn't have any of like the finer details that it takes to use a real asynchronized 18-speed manual transmission. You've got like the idea of like what it looks like, but that's not exactly how it works. But the one thing that it does extremely well, if you stay in the first person mode and you use your mirrors by looking side to side, and even better if you use like the mod for VR support, even better. You actually use the mirrors and you stay in first person mode, you will learn how to back up a trailer. And if you do the stuff that you learn in an actual CDL course, do it in the game. I guarantee you will never take the easy way out ever again. Every yard you pull up into in that game, you will always pick the hard option of tell me where you want the trailer, and you'll spot it there every single time. So it might not have the transmission or how you actually like handle the truck fully modeled properly, but backing up, absolutely. That is 100% how we do it in real life. If you can do it in real life, I promise you, you can do it in the game. And then as far as like a flight simulator, I can't really think of too many where you would walk around like this. Probably the closest I would think for like the simulation is garbage, but the vehicles across the board and how you interact with them, I'd say like Stormworks, Build and Rescue. Planes, trains, helicopters, trucks, ships, cars, submarines. Fuck it, build it all. If you don't know how to build, get it off the workshop. If you do know how to build and you know how like the real equipment works and you can make something that mimics what the real equipment looks like, awesome, more power to you. There's a lot missing in that game. Let's start with aerodynamics. Or hydrodynamics for that matter. Although, to be fair, that has like the smallest attention to detail of any construction game I have ever played. So the amount of stuff that actually is in the game, it's legitimately impressive. That is an awesome game. It's just there is so much about like the simulation that leaves a little bit to be desired. I still love the game. I still have 1,400 hours in it. But yeah, that's a whole thing. So yeah, now I'm kind of just like rambling about random things. So, as a bit of a recap of what we've managed to accomplish in this stream, I grabbed some. I built a train last time I played out in the harbor. It was a unit train of two different cuts of acetylene intermodal containers, brought them up the mountain, up to the machine factory, spotted them on the inbound tracks, tied them down, turned in the job booklets, teleported around the world, found the garage key to unlock the micro shunter, got that taken care of. Now I've got that, and I can summon it wherever the hell I want it to be. So that thing that I did like 2 streams ago, where I had that stupid shit at the steel mill, where it was like, all right, I need to put this car over there, but I can't put it over there. And I ended up like ramming into it with the hand cart. It's like just ramming into it with the hand cart. We don't have to do that anymore. Now we have a micro shunter, and it even has it even has a brake reservoir, so it can move the cars properly. So if we have that thing where we need to reverse Dutch drop a freaking hopper car, we don't have to do that. We can just spawn the micro shunter and just push it in. Yeah, now we can ram it into it with the micro shunter. I mean, we can actually couple it to the micro shunter. We don't just have to ram into it and hope for the best. It actually has a coupler and a brake pipe. We can move it properly. It might only work for like a car or two, but we can do it. We don't need to slam into it with the freaking hand truck, which that clip's on my YouTube channel. Good times. So, got the micro shunter, teleported back to the machine factory, moved our engines from the north end of the sea yard, brought it down here to the roundhouse, turned it in, got it refueled, resupplied, found my remote control, which phased through reality, and that's probably what activated the sander. For whatever reason, whenever you drop it's like whenever you drop the remote control, somehow it always lands on the sander. And on a real remote control, I have to like hold the freaking alerter for like 7 seconds or something like that, and then it only applies sand as long as I'm holding down the button. It's a whole thing. But for whatever reason, whenever I drop the remote in this game, it always lands on the sander. Didn't touch the sander once the entire day, yet somehow I got to top off the sander on all 4 engines and the slug, or the 3 engines and the slug. And the slug's great. Apparently, in the recent updates, you know what? Why isn't that a thing? Alt Future, give us the fuel cutoff right here. It's like you look over here you look at the slug. This thing right here, this is the emergency fuel cutoff. And since the slug is supposed to be on a DE6 frame, why does the slug have the cutoff button, but the DE6 does not? And I like the fact that they fixed it so that now it used to be, when they first released it, it used to be a thing where whatever, if you put a diesel electric on an end of it, whichever one you coupled first with the MU cable, that provided power to the traction motors. But now you can put a diesel electric on both sides, and they will both power the traction motors. But obviously, the way that I have it set up, that's diesel hydraulic, so it's not doing a damn thing. Like, I have this setup, which this is extremely expensive to run. Like, I have 2 DE6s and a DH4. All of these are operational. So this is a very costly setup to run. But as you can see, even with switching cars in the harbor and building the train, bringing them here, spotting all of the cars, it was still like $25,000 to refuel and refit all 4 units. So it's not that expensive, ultimately. And like, I'm sitting here at like $330,000. It's like a drop in the bucket. But I will say that since they have the micro shunter now, and that is such an awesome thing. And I love the fact that it's remote controlled. Like it's an RCL. I love it. I can pair with that and I can move it from the ground. Just like the DE2 and the DH4. I have to have the DH4 because the DH4 is remote controlled. Having that one in my engine consist allows me to remote control all of these. So realistically, I don't even need to turn it on. I could just leave it there and just like never touch it and just use it as dead weight with a remote transponder. But I turn it on anyway, and it gives me a little bit more tractive effort. So I can't definitively say when the next time that I will stream is, but it'll either be this again, or maybe I might start fixing my vehicles in Stormworks, because they've had a couple of major updates since the last time I seriously played. So I gotta go back and fix a lot of stuff. I gotta make sure all of my workshop creations still work, because I'm not 100% sure that they do. So, at over 2.5 hours now. What about VTOL VR? I will still play that at some point. One of my friends and I were working on figuring out how to better do the electronic warfare stuff. But I haven't played too many multiplayer games lately. And honestly, I have to make a new world and start working on a new set of campaign missions, because my old one that's on the workshop right now, the actual backup for the file is on my computer that died. So the files are freaking gone. So I had to start over from square one, and for some odd reason, I can't download my own workshop creation onto my new computer and just pick up where I left off. It's just gone completely. So I've either got two options. I either delete it from the workshop and start over, or just leave it there and just pretend it doesn't exist. It can never be updated with the new aircraft because I don't have the files for it. So if you want to bring in like the EF-24, for example, you can't. So I got to start over with a new map. I've got the map, but I don't have any missions for it yet. And I haven't really been working on it because, well, I'm busy with my actual job. And then when I have the time off, I'm just not feeling it. It's a whole thing. Like, my schedule is freaking crazy. But at least it pays well, so I got that going for me. So yeah, I don't know when the next time that I will stream will be. I could be off next weekend, or I could be going back over the road, and then I'll be gone. I'll be off every 2 days. Yeah, that tends to happen. Luckily, I've been in class this week, so my schedule is a little bit more relaxed. but that won't last too much longer. Got about 2 weeks of on-the-job training, and then I go back to working normally, hopefully with my remote operator license. And then it'll be up in the air how often I even get to use it anyway. But they offered the class, I volunteered for it, and here we are. The rest is history. Let me put this away. No. Okay. Good to go. So yeah, even though it wasn't a particularly long stream, but I still managed to get quite a few things done. I got to talk about what I'm doing in real life outside of the game. Got to bring that training and experience back to the game, kind of like what I do with every other simulator that I play. That's like my niche demographic right there. But yeah, that seems like as good of a stopping point as any. So, thank you all for watching. Hopefully, you have a nice day. Let me get this real quick. I do not have that game, but it does look pretty cool. But yes, as I said, this has been Derail Valley. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully, you have a nice